Welcome. I'm Scott with CA Jail Outreach and home of Camp Growth, supporting the children of incarcerated parents. Today, we feature JW, a leader in our mentorship program, sharing his memoir on post-incarceration syndrome. If you or someone you know is preparing for discharge from federal or state prison, listen in for first-hand wisdom on the journey home. One thing I love about JW is his heart for helping others, and his signature quote says it all: keep writing, keep growing. This is the ministry of the pen. Please stay tuned until the end of the podcast. I'll come back on and share how to access our resources and connect with our team. We have a saying here: before I turn it over to Steve and Trinity, we don't say goodbye, we say, until the trumpet blows. In the meantime, let's push forward until he comes. Enjoy the podcast.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
It's good to be here.
We're coming to you today in a different capacity than usual. We're here as part of the CA Jail Outreach digital community team. And it's genuinely an honor to be sitting here with this material.
It really is. You know, we usually sit down for these deep dives and we're parsing, data sets or historical documents, something we can keep a bit of a distance from.
Right, something analytical.
Exactly. But today, this feels different. This feels heavier.
A lot heavier, yeah.
It does. We're looking at a collection of writings provided by the CA Jail Outreach team. And honestly, just reading through this, it's not just information. It's a real gut check.
It is. So today, we're launching into a deep dive we're calling Growth Journey. And just to be totally clear for everyone listening, this isn't a generic title about, climbing the corporate ladder or something.
No, not at all.
We are going deep into the writings of a man named JW.
Right. And JW is a member of the CA Jail Outreach leadership team. He has written this combination of a memoir and a guide that is, well, the title alone just stopped me in my tracks.
Me too.
It's called The Shadow of the Mothership, a memoir of post-incarceration syndrome.
The Shadow of the Mothership. It sounds almost sci-fi, doesn't it? Like something from a movie.
It really does. But then you open the first page and you realize he's not talking about aliens or spaceships. He's talking about something incredibly real and deeply damaging.
He's talking about the federal prison system.
Yeah. But he uses that term, the mothership, to capture just how overwhelming and alien that environment is, how it sort of hovers over you.
And the really critical part is what the book focuses on.
Yeah.
It's not about the time inside, not really. It's about what happens to your mind when you leave that system.
Mm-hmm.
We all have this image in our heads, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably from movies. The guy walks out of the prison gates, his family's there crying, he gets in the car.
And the credits roll.
Exactly. The credits roll, the nightmare is over, happy ending.
And JW is basically screaming from these pages that, no, the movie isn't over. In fact, for a lot of people, that's when the real psychological horror movie is just getting started.
And that is the absolute core of what we're digging into. Now, before we really get into the weeds, I think it's important we set the stage for the mission here.
Absolutely. The heart of CA Jail Outreach, what it's all about, is people. Specifically, it's for those who have loved ones in the jail system right now.
Or who have come out.
And the goal is, it's simple, but it's profound. Yeah. It's hope, and it's second chances. We're not here to litigate the past. We're here to explore the map he's drawn for restoration.
That's a great way to put it. And a quick note on how we're approaching this material. We're going to be discussing the titles, the subtitles, and the very deep spiritual themes in JW's writings. Mm. We're reporting the content impartially. Our goal is just to help you, the listener, understand the journey he describes and the path to healing he's proposing. We're not taking any political sides, no judicial sides.
No, we're just exploring the text. We want to understand the what and the why of his experience. We want to understand his map of this very dark territory.
Because if you don't have a map for that territory, you get lost. And getting lost in this context, well, it means you end up going right back to prison.
Right back inside.
So let's set the hook here. Usually when we talk about prison, it's about the crime, the trial, the time served. But JW's writing zeroes in on the battle that happens after the release.
The silent battle, the one nobody sees.
He calls it Post-Incarceration Syndrome, or PICS. And the whole idea is that your physical body might walk out of the cell.
But your mind can stay trapped. It stays in that 6 by 8 foot box.
It's that distinction, isn't it, between physical freedom and psychological freedom. and that gap can feel like a canyon.
A massive gap. I mean, you can be physically standing in Times Square and mentally you are still in lockdown.
So let's unpack this. Part 1, the man of the mission. Let's start with who J.W. is. Based on his writings, what do we know about the author?
Well, the writings tell us he was born and raised in Queens, New York City. He describes a pretty profound life transformation back in 2011 through an encounter with the Word of God. He actually went on to Bible college after that.
Okay, so he had this spiritual foundation already. This isn't someone who found faith inside the walls. He went in with it.
He did, but
Right.
then he describes hitting what he calls a dark mental season. And this is where the story just takes a hairpin turn. In May of 2020, he was arrested, and it was a high-profile arrest.
Yeah, reading the details, this wasn't just a standard pickup. The writing describes an FBI reverse sting. It was conducted by the NYC Joint Terrorism Task Force.
So we're talking about very high stakes, very serious charges, and the result of that was 3.5 years spent in federal custody.
He was released in 2023, and now he writes as a husband, a father, and he says, a witness to restorative power. But what I find so compelling is how he describes the very concept of imprisonment. He's not just talking about being behind bars.
No, it's almost poetic, but in a really dark way. He writes that the gates of federal prison don't just hold a body.
What does he say?
They attempt to swallow the soul.
Wow, swallow the soul. That's a terrifying image.
It is. It's not about containment. It's about consumption.
Yeah.
The system digests your identity, and that's where he introduces his definition of post-incarceration syndrome.
Right.
He calls it the psychological reality that exists in the quiet, terrifying spaces between the old life and the new world. It's that limbo state. You don't belong in the free world, but you're not in prison anymore either. You're just adrift.
And he anchors this feeling in Scripture. He points to Psalm 107, verses 10 through 12.
Such as sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, being bound in affliction and iron. It's a perfect description of being mentally incarcerated.
It really is. But help me understand this. Why is this distinction, physical release versus mental release, so critical? Why start the whole deep dive here instead of just, a checklist on how to get a job?
Because I think we, as a society, assume freedom is like a light switch. It's binary. You're in, then you're out. And if you're out, hey, you should be happy. You should be fine. Problem solved.
Right. And you're complaining about you're free.
Exactly. But JW is arguing really powerfully that the trauma of the mothership, his word for prison, it fundamentally rewires your brain. It changes your operating system. And if you don't actively work on the mental release, the physical release is almost meaningless.
You're just walking around in a cage that nobody else can see.
You're still sitting in that darkness, even when you're standing in the sunlight. Precisely. And that leads directly into the core of his guide. He doesn't just diagnose the problem, he maps out a solution. He calls it the growth journey, 7 steps to healing from PICS.
And we are definitely going to walk through all of these, but I want to spend some real quality time on the first 3. Because looking at them, they feel foundational. If you don't get these right, the other 4 seem almost impossible.
They're the immediate triage. This is the spiritual first aid you need right when you get out.
So step 1. JW calls this recenter on the word daily.
This goes right to the heart of the chaos that's happening in your mind when you're released.
He says the world is loud and confusing. I mean, I can only begin to imagine. If you've been in a concrete box for years where the loudest sound is a door slamming, and suddenly you're hit with smartphones, traffic, music, people talking everywhere.
It's a total sensory assault, which we'll get into more when we talk about his matrix metaphor. But the problem isn't just the volume of the noise, it's that there's no static point. Everything is in flux. Everything is moving. JW's argument is that you desperately need an anchor that does not move.
And for him, that anchor is Scripture.
Right. He quotes Psalm 119, verse 105. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path.
I love that image. It's so specific. A lamp for your feet. It doesn't light up the whole forest. It's not a floodlight showing you the next 5 years.
Yeah.
It just shows you where to put your foot next.
And that's the whole strategy right there. When you're struggling with PICS, trying to look at the big picture of your life is just, it's completely overwhelming.
Yeah, you look 5 years down the road, and all you see is probation, debt, the felony on your record.
It's too much. It'll crush you. So you have to stop looking at the horizon and just look down at your feet. What is the very next step? The word, he argues, provides that immediate focus. It turns down the volume on the rest of the world's chaos.
So it's about finding like a baseline frequency, amid all the static. It's interesting, he's not saying, read the Bible so you can become a theologian.
No, not at all.
He's saying, read the Bible so you don't lose your mind. It's a survival tool.
It's a stabilizing agent. For a brain that is actively trying to spin out of control, it's the first thing you grab onto.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Let's move to step 2. I really want to pause here because the writing puts a huge emphasis on this. And honestly, I feel like this is the most critical part for anyone listening who is part of that support network.
Absolutely.
Step 2 is lean on your inner circle with a very specific focus on family.
This is a huge section. If you're listening right now and you're a spouse, a parent, a sibling, a friend of someone coming out or still inside, lean in. This is your playbook.
The core instruction is so simple. Do not walk alone.
And it connects right back to Galatians 6, verse 2. Bear ye one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. But what's so powerful is that JW doesn't just leave it there. He doesn't just say love them. He gives actual tactics.
He talks about the power of physical touch.
Yes. Just putting a hand on someone's shoulder. And it sounds so simple, right? Almost trivial.
Yeah, like, of course I'd hug him.
But you have to think about the context of the mothership. Think about what touch means in prison.
Right. If someone touches you inside, what is it?
It's almost never a good thing. It's violence. It's a guard giving you a pat-down search. It's being put in restraints. Touch is utilitarian or it's aggressive. It is almost never tender or comforting.
So a prisoner's nervous system is literally trained to flinch at touch, to see it as a threat.
That's a great way to put it. It's a threat response. So for a family member, a wife, a mother, to just gently place a hand on their shoulder in a gesture of simple comfort, that is literally rewriting the code in their brain.
It's rehumanizing them.
It is. It grounds them in the present. It's a physical signal that says, you are real, you are safe now, you are loved. It overrides that ingrained flinch response. It's the body's way of learning, I am not in the mothership anymore.
It breaks the physical isolation.
It does. And he also puts a huge emphasis on the power of shared prayer. And he's specific about this, not just praying for them, but praying with them.
Okay, so expand on that for us. Why is praying with them so different from saying, I'm praying for you?
Because shame is an incredibly isolating force. We're going to get to this later, but JW talks about feeling like a dried up turd, and that's his quote, not mine.
A very vivid one.
It is. But when you feel like that, you feel utterly unworthy to even speak to God. You feel like your prayers are just bouncing off the ceiling. You feel like God isn't listening to you, the convicted felon.
So when the wife or the mother or the brother sits down and prays with you,
they're acting as your advocate. They're acting as the bridge. They're essentially taking your hand and walking you into the throne room with them. It validates your spiritual standing when you can't validate it for yourself.
You mentioned the CA jail outreach heart earlier. How does that philosophy fit into this step?
The whole heart of this outreach is the fundamental belief that families are the bridge back to humanity. The system, the government, they can release a prisoner, they can open the gate, but only a family can truly welcome a person home.
Wow, that's a powerful distinction.
It is. Family support isn't just about the logistics. It's not just, here's a ride home from the bus station or here's a hot meal, as important as those things are.
Sure.
It is about spiritual grounding. The family becomes the external evidence of grace. When a person feels worthless and irredeemable, which is a core symptom of PICS, the family's unconditional love is the living, breathing counter-argument.
So if you're a family member, you're not just a chauffeur or a cook. You're a theologian in action. You're the evidence that they are still human, still worthy of love.
You are bearing their burden spiritually and emotionally because they are too weak to carry it alone in those first days and weeks. You are their strength.
That leads perfectly into step 3, which is slow down the stimuli.
This is the countermeasure to that intense internal pressure to catch up with the world.
Oh man, I can't imagine how huge that pressure must be. You've lost years of your life. You feel like you were in a time capsule while the world sped by. You come out and you want to get a job, get a car, fix your marriage, learn how to use a smartphone all in the first week.
Exactly. But JW calls reentry a traumatic shock. It's not a gentle transition. And physiologically, your nervous system is completely haywire. It's been rewired for survival in a low-stimulus, high-threat environment.
And the advice here is so counterintuitive, but so critical. It is okay to be still.
It's right from Psalm 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. It's permission to stop.
But why is that stillness so hard for someone coming out? Why can't they just relax and enjoy being free?
I think a big part of it is guilt. There's this overwhelming sense of, I wasted so much time, so now I have to run twice as fast to make up for it. But JW's point is, if you try to run a marathon on a broken leg, you don't win the race, you just shatter the bone.
Right.
You don't have to catch up to the world in one day. Your body, your mind, they need time for a gradual adjustment. It's a physiological need. If you ignore it, you will crash and burn.
I think about the sensory input, too. I mean, we take something for granted like walking into a Walmart or a Target.
Oh, absolutely. A grocery store can be a living nightmare for someone with PICS. Just think about it. The fluorescent lights, the music playing, the announcements, the sheer number of colors on the packaging, the hundreds of choices for something as simple as cereal.
The people moving in all different directions.
All of it. In prison, everything is gray or beige. Everything is ordered. Everything is predictable. The mothership is a low-stimulus reality. The world outside, the matrix, is high stimulus. If you don't intentionally slow down, your brain literally cannot process all the data you're feeding it. It short-circuits.
So those first 3 steps are really a survival kit. Get into the Word to find your compass. Let your family love you and touch you to ground you in your own body.
Yes.
And intentionally slow everything down so you don't completely burn out your nervous system in the first week.
It's a triage protocol. You have to stabilize the patient before you even think about rehabilitation.
Now, to really understand why this triage is so desperately needed, we have to look closer at the environment they've just left. We've touched on it, but we need to go deeper. And that brings us to part 3 of our deep dive. The mothership versus the matrix.
These metaphors are so potent. They do so much work in explaining the severity of PICS.
Let's start with the mothership. That's JW's term for prison. Why that word mothership? What does that convey?
It implies total control. A mothership in science fiction controls all the little drones. It feeds them, it directs them, it owns them. It's the center of their universe. He describes prison as a Spartan-controlled environment. It strips away all the noise and choices of the world, but it replaces them with trauma.
And we have to remember the specific context of his journey. He was incarcerated during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic.
And that fact cannot be overstated. We all remember what the lockdowns were like on the outside. You know, we were baking bread and watching Netflix.
Right.
But inside a federal prison, he describes gulag-like conditions, not just lockdown, but being locked in a small cell for 23, sometimes 24 hours a day, for days, even weeks, on end.
No time in the yard, no visitation, no movement.
None. Just you and the concrete. And then there's the physical trauma. He writes very movingly about malnourishment, about the government rations simply not being enough to sustain a grown man, leaving men perpetually starving.
There's a detail in here that really struck me. He writes, I often went to sleep with my stomach turning against itself in hunger pangs.
That visceral gnawing hunger, it strips you down to your most primal self. It's a constant physical reminder of your powerlessness.
It reduces you to just survival. He says he was stripped of everything but longing. Longing for food, for family, for freedom.
And when you are constantly starving and cold and isolated, you become incredibly fragile, mentally and physically.
There's a quote here that just, it paints such a picture. He says, I felt at times like a little bird with broken wings lying on the pavement.
That image of utter vulnerability is heartbreaking. And it runs so counter to the tough guy con image we usually associate with federal prisoners. We think of them lifting weights, being hard.
Right.
JW is describing a broken bird, terrified and helpless.
And you have to adapt to survive that kind of environment. You have to become the bird that doesn't move so it doesn't get stepped on.
Exactly. You adapt to what he calls the rhythm of the bars. You adapt to the cold silence. Your brain actually rewires itself to survive in that high-threat, low-stimulus world. You learn to suppress your emotions because showing emotion in prison is a liability. It's dangerous.
And then, after 3.5 years of that conditioning, the doors open. And you slam headfirst into what he calls the matrix.
The world outside.
And the shock is a literal collision. He talks about that sensory overload we mentioned, the endless stimuli, the colors, the noise.
You know, if you've been staring at nothing but gray concrete and steel for thousands of days, the visual chaos of a single aisle in a grocery store can be physically paralyzing. The choices alone, 20 kinds of toothpaste, it just freezes the brain.
He describes the emotional fallout of this collision as newborn baby-like trauma.
That's such a fascinating and accurate phrase. Think about a newborn baby. They scream the moment they're born. Why? Because the air is cold, the lights are blinding, everything is overwhelming and new. That is exactly what release feels like to the PICS sufferer.
And this is the great paradox. Despite being physically free, he talks about experiencing suicidal depression.
This is the cruelest part of PICS. You're finally free, but you feel worse than ever. You expected this rush of joy and relief, but what you feel is terror and despair, and you can't explain it to anyone.
He uses that really graphic description for how he felt about himself. We mentioned it, but let's look at the context. He says he felt like a dried-up turd on the sidewalk of life.
It's raw, but it perfectly captures that feeling of being completely useless, discarded, something people walk around and try not to look at.
Feeling irredeemable.
Yeah.
Stained forever by the convicted felon label.
He talks about the cycle of losing his job and how that sent him spiraling into a dark season of the soul. You get out, you try to do the right thing, you apply for a job, you have to check that box, and you get rejected again and again. It just reinforces that voice in your head telling you that you are trash.
And here's the key observation he makes about why this is so common. He says, and I'm quoting, "Everyone comes out with mental health issues because they learn to camouflage pain inside."
Camouflage. That is the word. That's the survival mechanism of the mothership.
In prison, you can't show weakness. You can't let anyone see that you're hurting or scared or lonely. So you hide it. You build a wall. You put on the camouflage.
Then you get out, and you're still wearing it. You're at your own welcome home party. You're smiling and hugging people, but inside, you're still that little bird with the broken wings. You are performing normalcy while you are internally screaming for help.
That is just, it's heavy. But it explains perfectly why those first 3 steps, the grounding in the word, the connection with family, the slowing down, are so absolutely vital. You have to create an environment where it's finally safe to drop the camouflage.
Exactly. You feel safe enough to finally take off the mask. And once the mask is off, that's when the real work of rebuilding can begin.
Which brings us to the rest of the growth journey. Let's move through the final 4 steps. Step 4 is walk in total transparency.
This is the direct antidote to what he calls the invisible bars.
He connects this to Proverbs chapter 10, verse 9. "He that walketh uprightly walketh surely."
When you've been institutionalized, or if you were living a life of crime before that, you are conditioned to look over your shoulder. You're used to hiding things, hiding your phone, hiding your money, hiding your true intentions. It's a survival tactic.
So even after you get out, that instinct is still there. You feel like you need to be secretive to be safe.
Right. But JW argues the opposite, that true safety comes from transparency. Being completely honest with your family, with your parole officer, with your employer, with yourself. It removes the constant fear of being caught.
If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear.
It is a radical shift in how you live your life. It's about not having to keep track of lies anymore, and that frees up an incredible amount of mental and emotional energy.
Which you need. And that leads right into step 5. Combat the spirit of fear.
This one is aimed directly at the heavy paranoia that comes with being on supervised release.
The feeling that someone is always watching you, which, in a way, they are. You have a probation officer, you have rules and restrictions.
You do, but the fear he's talking about goes beyond that. It's a spiritual weight. It's a constant oppressive anxiety that you're going to mess up and be sent back.
And the counter-truth he offers is from 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind."
He's making a crucial distinction between awareness and fear. You can be aware of your legal restrictions without being terrified by them 24 hours a day.
It's a reminder that the paranoia is a ghost from the mothership. It's not a gift from God.
Yeah,
And you have to actively reject it. You have to choose to walk in that sound mind.
even when your pulse is racing and your instincts are screaming otherwise.
Step 6 is a big one. And frankly, this applies to everyone listening, but it's especially potent in this context. Reject the trap of comparison.
Oh, this is so deadly. It's the impulse to measure your mess against the highlight reel of people who never went to prison.
You get out, you're 35 years old, you have nothing, and you log on to social media.
Yeah.
You see your old high school friends. They have careers, houses, families, 401ks. They're posting pictures from their vacation to Hawaii.
And you feel like you're starting the race of life, a mile behind the starting line. It's a recipe for despair.
You feel like you've completely lost. But JW points to Galatians chapter 6, verse 4. "But let every man prove his own work."
What does that mean here? It means your journey is your journey. Your lane is your lane. You absolutely cannot compare your chapter 1 of restoration to someone else's chapter 20 of a completely different story.
If you compare, you despair.
100%. You have to focus on your own progress. Did you stay sober today? Did you read a chapter of the Bible? Did you make it to your appointment? That's the win. You can't look at your neighbor's new boat.
That brings us to the final step, step 7. Embrace your new identity.
This is the ultimate pivot point. This is where you make a conscious decision to leave that dried-up turd mentality at the foot of the cross.
And you pick up a new identity. He calls it being a steward of grace.
It's right there in 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. You are not an ex-con. You are not your inmate number. You are a new creation.
And that idea of being a steward of grace, it implies that your experience, even the darkest, most painful parts of it, is now an asset, something you manage for the benefit of other people.
Exactly. You're not just a survivor of the wreckage. You're now a lighthouse keeper, guiding other ships through the storm. You have a testimony. Your scars now have a purpose.
So we've walked through the 7 steps, but JW doesn't just stop there. He introduces a mechanism, a specific tool that he calls the central path to overcoming PICS. And honestly, this might be my favorite part of this whole deep dive.
Part 5, the ministry of the pen.
I love this concept so much.
It's a beautiful idea. He starts by diagnosing the problem with PICS. He says it's a disease that feeds on silence. It grows and festers in the dark, quiet corners of the mind where trauma is never spoken, never processed.
So the only way to kill it is to drag it into the light. The solution is to speak, or in this case, to write.
He calls writing a tactical strike against the trauma of the mothership.
A tactical strike. I love that phrasing. It's so active, so aggressive. He's not talking about passively journaling about your feelings. He's talking about going to war with your trauma.
It is warfare. It's taking the broken wings of your experience and methodically turning them into a roadmap for others. When you write something down, you externalize it, you take it out of your head where it's this swirling, terrifying monster, and you put it on paper.
You objectify it.
Yes, you can look at it and say, that is a thing that happened to me, but that thing is not me. That is not who I am. It creates separation.
So what does he suggest writing? I can imagine a lot of people listening are thinking, well, that's great, but I'm not a writer. I can't do this.
And that's the beauty of his approach. He says to write anything. That's the key. He gives a whole list. Write a love story that kept your heart alive in that cell. Write a fictional story about freedom. Write a nonfiction account of what you survived. Write out deep Bible lessons you learned.
He even specifically mentions writing podcast scripts.
He does, which, of course, is exactly what we are engaging with right this second.
It's very meta, but it proves the point. The document we are reading from, the entire basis for this deep dive, is JW doing exactly what he prescribes. He is writing his way out of the shadow.
He's proving the method works by demonstrating it. He has a quote here. The best way to overcome post-incarceration syndrome is to write about anything.
It connects back to that proverb he uses, Proverbs 18:15. The heart of the prudent getteth knowledge.
By writing, you are actively transforming your pain into a new purpose. You are taking the meaningless suffering of the mothership, the cold, the hunger, the loneliness, and you are imbuing it with meaning by sharing it. You're turning the poison into the antidote.
And CA Jail Outreach is actually looking for people to do this, right? They're looking for writers.
They are. They want to produce more high-impact podcasts just like this one. They view the story itself as a form of ministry. So if you're listening to this and you have a story, that is a direct call to action for you. Your pain could literally be someone else's survival guide.
Let's zoom out a bit. We've talked about the personal journey, the spiritual steps, but I want to tap into your expertise on the systemic side of things. Part 6, the gold standard ministry versus management.
This is where we see the hard data really backing up the spiritual principles. Because a skeptic might listen to all this and say, well, prayer and writing are nice, but does any of it actually stop crime?
And JW draws a very sharp contrast between secular government programs and faith-based ones.
He frames the typical secular programs as behavior management. It's all about modifying external behavior through rules and consequences. It's do this, don't do that, or you will go back to jail.
But he describes faith-based or peer-led programs as being about soul transformation.
Which is an internal change. It's not about changing the car's behavior. It's about pulling out the old engine and putting in a brand new one.
And what do the numbers say?
The numbers are, frankly, staggering. The national recidivism average, which is the rate of people being rearrested and sent back to prison, hovers around 68% within 3 years.
68%. That's a failing grade in any other field. I mean, imagine if a hospital had a 68% failure rate.
It would be shut down tomorrow. It is a revolving door. But when you look at intensive, spiritually rooted, peer-led programs, that number plummets to between 13 and 17%.
13 to 17. That is a massive difference. That's not a rounding error. That's a fundamentally different outcome. So why? What's the mechanism? Why does it work so much better?
JW boils it down to two key factors: identity and credibility.
Okay, let's break down identity first.
It's about turning a convict into a citizen and a steward of grace. Behavior management says, don't steal that car because you'll go back to jail. Soul transformation says, I don't steal cars because that's not who I am anymore. I'm a child of God, and we don't do that.
If you change the fundamental who, the what you do naturally follows.
Exactly. The behavior becomes a byproduct of the new identity.
And what about the second factor, credibility?
Peer-led ministries use men and women who have lived experience. They have walked the walk. They understand the hypervigilance of PICS because they've lived it.
Right.
So when a well-meaning counselor who's 25 years old and fresh out of grad school tells you to try these breathing exercises, it means one thing. It can sound like a platitude.
But when a man who did 10 years in federal prison, a man who survived the Mothership, lifts you in the eye and says,
Brother, I know the bars are gone, but I know you still feel them wrapped around your chest. But you can breathe now. Let me show you how. That hit's completely different. You trust him because he has the scars to prove he's been there.
it cuts through all the noise. It validates the struggle in a way no textbook ever could.
And this brings us to what JW calls the first 72 hours.
The critical window.
He describes this period, the first 3 days after release, as a spiritual battlefield.
Why that time frame so specifically? 72 hours.
Because that's the vacuum. You get out, the initial adrenaline of freedom wears off, and reality hits you like a ton of bricks. If you don't find a new tribe immediately in those first 3 days, the old life will suck you right back in.
The old friends, the old habits, the old neighborhood.
They're all waiting for you. That vacuum will be filled by something. And if it's not filled by your inner circle and the word and a new community, it will be filled by the streets.
He has a powerful quote here. A program can change a man's habits, but only a ministry can change a man's heart.
And a heart that belongs to Christ will never find comfort in a cage again.
That's the key. If the heart truly changes, the cage becomes intolerable. You don't go back because you simply don't fit there anymore. It's a foreign country. So if we have listeners who are looking for this kind of help, or families who are desperately trying to find a path forward, let's get really practical. Part 7, the wise traveler.
This is the how-to section. We've talked a lot about the why. Now let's talk about the how.
Getting help. He references that proverb again, 18:15, about seeking counsel. So where do you seek it?
If you or your loved one is coming out of a federal facility, he advises being proactive. Request meetings with the Bureau of Prisons social workers 30 to 90 days before release.
Don't wait until the day you walk out.
No, start the process on the inside. You have to advocate for yourself. He also mentions state-level rehab programs, using California's DRP as an example, which offers cognitive behavioral interventions.
And he mentions the Second Chance Act providers. What are those?
These are nonprofits that receive federal funding, SCA funding, specifically to handle incarceration trauma and reentry. You should look for them in your community. They have the budget and the specific mandate to help you.
He also notes a really important change coming in 2026 regarding Medicaid.
Yes, this is huge. Many states are going to start allowing enrollment in Medicaid before you're released. That means you can walk out of the gate with a health insurance card in your hand, ready to get therapy.
You don't have that dangerous gap of months waiting for approval while you're spiraling.
It's a game changer. And of course, he stresses the faith-based ministries.
CA Jail Outreach, your local church, the Salvation Army.
Find your tribe. He says you can't be too proud to walk into a church and just say, I just got out and I need a friend.
He gives some immediate actionable steps. Numbers you can call today.
Call 211. It's a universal number in the U.S. and Canada.
And what do you ask for?
Ask for reentry mental health services. They have a directory and can point you in the right direction.
There's also the SAMHSA National Helpline. That's 1-800-662-HELP.
And the National Reentry Resource Center online.
The point is, the help is out there, but you have to be the wise traveler and actively seek it.
The resources are the tools, but the willingness to reach out, to ask for help, that's the fuel. You have to become the chief advocate for your own healing.
As we start to wrap this up, I keep coming back to this idea of the Golden Dawn.
It's the final image JW leaves us with, and it's a powerful one.
He acknowledges all the darkness. He doesn't shy away from the trauma, from the hunger, from the broken bird feeling. He doesn't pretend the last 3.5 years didn't happen. But he says there is a golden dawn coming.
It's the idea that God specializes in redemptive alchemy. He can take what was meant for pure evil and destruction and transform it into ministry. The very thing that tried to destroy you becomes the platform you stand on to preach hope to someone else.
We are not defined by the reverse sting. We're not defined by the hunger pangs in the Mothership.
We are defined by grace.
He ends his writing with a final plea from Psalm 142, verse 7. Bring my soul out of prison, that I may praise thy name.
It's not just bring my body out. It's a prayer for that full, complete release body, mind, and soul.
We really want to say a huge and sincere thank you to CA Jail Outreach for hosting this deep dive and for their absolute dedication to sharing hope and truth.
Their work is so vital, and we want to encourage you, the listener, to explore what they do. There's a link in the description. Connect with them. They have pages for families, places to submit prayer requests, and you can find JW's full memoir there.
And we especially want to thank JW himself. It takes a profound amount of courage to rip open old wounds like this in order to help other people heal. We just ask you to keep him and his family in your prayers for sharing his heart so openly.
Absolutely. His vulnerability is a true gift to all of us.
Well, this has been a really powerful deep dive.
It really has. A different kind for us, but so important.
Until the trumpet blows, wishing you a fantastic day.
Now that you have heard the wisdom shared in this podcast, you can find the full written version on our website. The link is provided in the description box below. To stay connected and follow our journey, please visit our website for all our social media links. We also invite you to visit the author page for our CEO and founder. There, you can explore the complete collection of Growth Journey books available on Amazon. Every purchase you make, whether in paperback or Kindle format, directly fuels our mission. Your support allows us to send these same books to inmates and their families free of charge. Additionally, these contributions help us provide gift cards to our dedicated volunteers as a token of appreciation for their vital service in our outreach programs. I'd like to close with the words our CEO and founder, David, often shares with us. Helping is ordinary, adding ice makes it extraordinary. There are leaders, and then there are leaders who serve. But among the best are those who always remember to add ice. God bless. Until next time.